A lot of times, most people do ask me, how did I become a good fashion designer? Now, the simplest answer to this is I made sure I have different stuffs I will tell you in this video. So if you wish to learn or get to understand how you can become a good fashion designer within a space of 1 year to 2 years, remember or bear in mind that the number of years in your craft or in this craft does not guarantee anyone being a perfect fashion designer. So if this sounds like what you want to learn, kindly watch the very end and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So the first thing I made sure I do is I invested in the right tools. Now, what are these right tools? Now, when people say right tools, they think you need to break the bank before you invest in right tools. Now, right tools could range from your industrial sewing machine, because the type of machine you use in sewing also determines the outcome when you are good. But this does not really mean that machines has much say. It still means that it helps you to perfect and become faster in whatever you are doing, like industrial sewing machine. That's I make sure I save money to procure industrial sewing machine. I make sure I save money to get a good zigzag or buttonhole machine. So these things will help you to achieve a neater finishing within a short period of time. When you have these machines in your working space, you don't tend to go out to make these things by the roadside. You tend to use your hand and do these things by yourself. Then I also made sure I had weaving machine. Right back then, I was using the manual weaving machine. Now, I made sure the manual weaving machine was always in a good shape. I made sure I service it properly. The threads I use must be the same thread of either white, either black, or oxblood, series of threads of same color. Now, in some cases, when some threads get to finish, I make sure I provide the thread the next day, right? So when you tend to weave with one color of thread, it tends to give your work a neater finishing at the inside of your outfit. I also make sure I invested in good iron, right? Now, back in the days, I was using my normal, regular dry cell iron. That's the likes of Philips iron and the rest. But then, as time goes on, I make sure I got a steam iron. Now, steam iron has a way of improving your finishing. When you iron with your steam iron, it tends to relax the outfit, remove every possible rumples that might be on the fabric, and it also safeguards the fabric surface from unnecessary shining or iron burn on the surface of the fabric. So when you invest in good iron, it also helps you, to be faster in productivity or in production, right? So I also made sure I invested in different types of footer, like the invisible footer, which most people use in fixing your zip, right? So this footer helps us to fix our zips on our outfit. So I tried to bring it, but it's not here with me. So now this footer has the manual type and it has the industrial type. So if you have an industrial machine, just go to the market, tell them you need the invisible footer of zip. It has left and right. You can buy one, you can buy two of them. It can be used in fixing your shoulder zips, chest zips, and every invisible zips at every point in time. It gives you a faster and neater effect in the zip fixing, right? So aside the zip footer, I also make sure I got what they call the ironing board. Ironing board is what I use to open press the seam allowances at the inside of my outfit. My inseam trouser leg, I use the board as well to iron. These things I'm telling you are the things I didn't know before. And when I started using them, I saw the difference in my work. And with up to, let's say, the ironing board is sold for, I think, 13K. Zipper footer is sold for, I think, 1.5 for one or two of them, depending. Iron, you can get it for 70K. The steam iron, right? In another machine is being sold for now, I think, 305,000 naira for a 2-lion direct drive, right? So these things are the things I got, and I started using them. And I also made sure I bought my drafting rulers, my French curves, my armhole curve, hip curve, I bought them in sets before, but later on I got to find out that I need only two in the whole set. So the hip curve and the neckline curve, if you must have been watching my videos on how to draft outfits, you will see me using these tools. So these tools will save you the stress of using a freehand sketch to sketch, and your finishing, your goodness of your sewing start from the patterning or from the drafting or from the cutting, right? Because whatever you cut is what you're going to stitch or sew. So all of these things, compiles to your outlook, your general outlook of your outfit. So the armhole curve, I use it for my neckline, the hip curve for sleeve curve as well, and the lap curve to the knee and everything. So these tools helps me a lot in my being perfect, right? Because before I was using my freehand sketch and it was really, really a long journey for me. So the next I also make sure you have is a long ruler. Now, long ruler helps you to draw, long lines to be straight. Don't manage short rulers. Short rulers will limit you, and it will limit your time of being perfect and being fast in your job. I also make sure I use tailor's chalk. Now, most tailors use the whiteboard chalk in drafting. It's not proper. Make sure you invest in tools. Like these tools will even give you the sense of costing, sense of knowing what to cost, sense of knowing how much to charge for your client, right? So when you invest in these tools, you have to, be up and doing, and you have to know that you have invested so much in this work. That means you need to take it serious, right? So another thing I also did or I do is that I measure while cutting my fabric. I cross-check my measurements. Now, there was time I do make silly mistakes by using someone else's measurement to draft someone else's fabric. It happens at every time. I also make sure I label each fabric anybody brings to my shop with masking tape, because if you claim you can know the fabrics, there will be a time you'll be in a haste, and you will not be able to remember that someone else brought some fabric that looks like this, and you will interchange fabrics. So this will make you to be losing money by going to the market to buy back the fabric. In most times, you won't even see it. I remember sometime I exchanged a white fabric with a mere white fabric, right? And this was for a traditional wedding of a guy. So at the end of the day, I had to rebuy the one I misplaced for the other one. And it was a whole lot of money for me then. So if you are being careful, or if you want to be careful, you need to have masking tape at your office. Anyone that brings fabric, please cut a piece of it, label it on the fabric, and write the person's name. If possible, write the measurements on that body so that you will not forget who owns the fabric. You get? So this will help you to, save you time to think who owns some fabric. So these are the mistakes I did years ago, and it really, gave me a cause of thinking or gave me issues. So next thing I did as well is that I made sure while cutting, I iron my fabric. Like before I cut my fabric, I must iron. Now ironing is to remove every possible rumples. Now it also gives you a neutral ground, a relaxed ground for you to have your measurements properly applied. I make sure as well I cross-check my drafting before I cut, because they say cross-check once and cut, and cross-check twice and cut once, because if you don't cross-check, you might end up making mistakes. I also make sure that I don't interchange measurements, like using other parameters to cut some other areas, especially the waist, the hip, and the length of trouser. These areas must be properly applied, because once you interchange them, you will not have the grace again to go and recut, because the only option left is to buy new fabric. So now when I am cutting, I make sure I iron. Now before I start sewing, I make sure I use the proper gum, proper hairstay, proper interfacing, or to fuse my fabrics at the exact places I need, right? Now, because if you don't gum properly, if you say, let me just sew, after sewing, let me go and iron, it will not work. Sometimes where I learn to work in the market, in Nowhere, I do see people, when they want to sew the trouser pocket, they will cut hairstay, fold it at the pocket edge, fold and sew. They will not say, when ironing, it will gum. I have seen people do that. I believe you have also seen people do that. Now, this will make the job to be rough. So they are always in a haste and they are not patient enough to apply the needed gum at some point. So when they gum, when they fold and sew, while they're trying to gum after sewing, they tend to burn or shine the fabric because they need more pressure or more steam to gum that particular spot that they have added haste or whatever gum they added at that point. I also make sure that I use light color gum on my flaps, my breast pockets, and side pockets. Now, in some cases, if some fabrics are too tender or too soft, I don't use gum on the side pockets. I use light haste, or I don't use gum at all. I just use hemming gum to fold the edges and sew it on the fabric. But you make sure you study your fabrics and know what that should come in or that should be used at every point in time. I reduce hand in using thick cloth gum. I make sure I use haste, light cloth gum, and light color gum. I only use hard color gums at some unique styles or unique effects on my outfit. So I also make sure that when I'm sewing, I iron every stage I have gotten to. Now, if you have this issue with ironing, you say, let me finish sewing and iron, you end up forgetting some areas that needs to be ironed. There are some areas that when you sew, you iron. It will give you an easier entrance in sewing the next stage of the outfit. Now, if you are trying to join the shoulder of your outfit and you have sewn it, recently I used hemming gum in joining my shoulders to avoid top stitching. So when I put the hemming gum on my shoulders, if you have been watching my videos initially or earlier on how to join outfits, you will see me using hemming gum while joining the shoulder. So if you have added hemming gum on the shoulder and you go ahead to lock the back facing or the back queue, now in most cases you might not be able to relax it properly. But if you have ironed the shoulder first before locking the back facing, the outfit will tend to relax and give you a grand entrance to the next stage of your sewing. I also make sure that I avoided using haste to gum the piping of my outfit. I only use hemming gum in the gumming. The reasons being that hemming gum will make the outfit or will make the gumming to be so perfect and to be so accurate, right? So now, when you are sewing, you are meant to gum. You are meant to gum and iron. Then, like when you are sewing, you're meant to iron your outfit bit by bit. If you join your sleeve, you iron the sleeve outfit, the sleeve of the outfit or the sleeve area. If you pipe your neck, you iron. If you do your flap, you iron. If you put your pockets, you iron. So this will be, giving the job an easier finishing for you. Then after you have ironed while sewing, after you have also sewn, you also need to iron finally to do the packaging or the final ironing. So this will make your job to come out nicely. There is no magic that you will do that you can avoid or run away from ironing. Ironing is very essential in tailoring. For every good designer, you must be friends with ironing, except you want to ruin the finishing effect of your outfit. So after the ironing effect, ironing your outfit, I also make sure that I don't only focus on the outer looks of my outfit, like all this bling bling stuff. I make sure as well the inside of the outfit is also well neatly finished by weaving and cutting my threads. So if you have watched my videos previously on how to sew, you will see me saying cut your threads, cut your threads. Now this is I'm saying it's not because of I am perfect. No, it's because of the way I walk. I am used to cutting my threads. So by the time you imbibe or you inculcate the habit of cutting the threads, you will see that your outfit will be neat. Because if you say, let me first sew and later cut the threads, it's not possible. It will not work. So you must make sure you cut every bit of your sewing step, the threads. Cut every step, cut every bit of the threads. And make sure that if you're using vintage neck on the back of your outfit, the vintage must be a very fine vintage that will illuminate the neckline of your outfit, right? And lastly, but not the least, some tailors find it difficult to go to the market to pick threads for the outfit. Like when they want to sew, they don't buy threads. At any point in time you go to the market to buy fabric or any fabric you are buying, please make sure you buy the thread at once, because you might want to buy let's say a navy blue thread, a navy blue outfit fabric. Then you now come back to your shop, you use navy blue, you end up using black. Now at that point it might tend to be good, but that black will have a way of exposing you at the end of the sewing, and you will not have the time to lose again. So if you buy any fabric, please make sure before you step out from the market, buy the same thread of the house, because that's the time you are with the fabric that you can easily go and pick the thread you want. In some cases as well, I tend to buy threads in bulk, let's say a pack of each color I might find to be coming often in my place, especially black threads, white threads, oxblood, navy blue, royal blue. These threads are always available. But on some colors like carton color, silver, ash, you have to buy them in accordance to the fabric that is on ground. So I make sure that whenever I buy a fabric in the market, I also go straight forward to buy the same thread that matches that same fabric, because if you don't buy it, you might end up spending more money going to the market to buy, or even feeling so lazy going to buy again. That means you now have to make do with what color of thread that is closest to it. And threads, they have a way of spoiling your fabric. From afar, they will notice that this color of thread is not what is meant to be used, and you end up paying dearly for it. So thread selection is of very importance, of very essence, that every tailor should be very careful and very patient and be very good in selecting threads. There are some fabrics as well that the threads are not easily seen in the market, right? So, and when you buy the fabrics like burnt orange is one of the fabrics I know that you hardly see the thread that matches, because it has different shades and different texture, right? So, but then if you are lucky enough to go around the market, you tend to get the perfect thread that will work well for your outfit. So these are the tricks I use to make my jobs easy. And one thing about this is that there's a time, or there's a way you will become, detailed in your jobs. To go the wrong way becomes an issue for you. That is, there's a time or there's a way you will get used to these processes or these protocols. You will not find it funny anymore to go the wrong way. You will not be so addicted to the good part, and you will always be working towards that good part. To do the wrong thing becomes so hard for you. So this is the time you now have to increase your charge, increase your pricing, so that you can now be getting value for your craft. Now, if you have not tried this, please make sure you try this and start from the little you can afford. Even if you don't have money to procure or buy these things I said in bulk, buy them bit by bit, especially steam iron. Steam iron is a lifesaver, especially hemming gum. Hemming gum is a lifesaver. If you are good in sewing and you are not using hemming gum to sew, my brother, your jobs will never be as good as you might wish, right? When you go online and study some outfits you see online from top brands, from top designers, you do see this relaxed effect. You do see this finishing effect. You think it's by magic. It's not by magic. They have worked towards their perfection. They have built their brand in a way that they cannot produce bad jobs. And the production takes bearing from the tools they use, from the sewing accessories they use, right? So these things are part of them, and you must adopt these methods for you to be able to get to their level. If you are still doubting how important is industrial machine to sewing, how important is steam iron to the sewing, how important is my hemming to the sewing, that means you are not ready to grow. You cannot deny these facts. They are there. The moment you start trying out these facts, you see yourself growing even more than you have expected. So if you have questions to ask, don't forget to like this video, comment, share, ask your questions in the comment section of this video, and I will go ahead to answer you in accordance to your questions. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one. Bye bye for now.